Well, after their big win over Oregon in the final minutes, Washington is on top of the Pac-12 in more ways than one. They're the team to beat. They are not the only team feeling really good after Week 7, though.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with our media rights and soon to be mostly team-free. But until then, beloved and still very loaded Conference of Champions. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch the show, which today is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I love Monday shows. I really, really love Monday shows. I love a good winners and losers segment. Washington's the biggest winner from the week, of course. They were playing in the biggest game, they were on the biggest stage, and they won in the final minutes against my Ducks again. Michael Penix, awesome. Heisman frontrunner. He now has negative odds to win the Heisman. No one else is closer than like plus 500. And of course he should be the frontrunner. How could he not be the frontrunner at this point in the season? He's throwing for over 300 yards against Oregon, and everyone's looking at it going, boy, I think the Ducks defense did a pretty good job keeping him in check. Like, when that's your standard, that's when you know, yeah, okay, this guy is really, really good, which he is. His receivers are really good. The game was really good. Again, I mean, oh my gosh, I think everyone at this point outside of the Pac-12 wants Oregon and Washington to meet in the Pac-12 title game again in Las Vegas on December 1st, just because it keeps being an awesome football game. I'd compared it to Red River from the week prior going into that game, and that's exactly what it was. Came down to the final moments. I mean, it was a fantastic, exciting, thrilling football game. And Washington, yeah, they're the favorites in the Pac-12 right now. Unbeaten in conference play still. And their schedule is so interesting. It's so very interesting. November is going to define their season because their next two games are Arizona State. No, that's not going to happen again. And at Stanford. Stanford's a nice story, still not a great team. Well, they're a nice story for a week anyway. They're an outright winner. But Washington, the biggest outright winner of the week because they're 6-0. After the next couple of weeks, they will be 8-0. And then it gets fun. Then it gets really, really fun. At USC, Utah, at Oregon State, Washington State. Those 4 games in the month of November, absolutely brutal. Washington State took a step back this week. Maybe they're not quite as scary at home. Okay, I could grant you that. But what if Cam Rising is back for Utah? How nasty does that defense look? They're winning games without him. What are they going to do with him if he comes back? I don't know. We'll see. Oregon State, boy, do they look really good. Pac-12 power rankings here on the show are coming out tomorrow, and Oregon State's going to be pretty high. At USC, look, the Trojans are down in a bad way at the moment. I don't know that that's going to last. Lincoln Riley has still never lost or still never won fewer than 10 games in a regular season in which it's been a full season of college football. I don't know. Gonna be fun. So Washington, yeah, everything is rolling the way they want to right now. They get the big win over Oregon. They're rolling along. Penix is amazing. They're the top team. Like, everybody's looking up at Washington right now in the Pac-12 standings and in the Pac-12 power rankings, and they should be. And they're number 5 in the AP poll. I think they should be higher than Florida State. I think beating Oregon, even at home, is more impressive than Florida State beating LSU, because I think Oregon's a better team than LSU. So, at least they've been more impressive to this point, and I think that the rankings and common sense would reflect that. So SEC bias, you can't get rid of it, but it is what it is. If Washington wins out, they'll be just fine, of course. So Washington, one of the big winners from the week. How about Stanford? I'm still out of words. I recorded a podcast late on Friday night after watching that game. I still don't have words for what took place in Boulder. The Pac-12 Prime Picks were on their way to a 4-1 week. Gotten on the winning side of things again. Shout out to the Beefs. But how in the world? did that happen? I don't know. Troy Taylor seems to know what he's doing. I think Ashton Daniels needs to be their quarterback. They know that. But Manor, the receiver, the other speedy dude they have, got some players. If Jurasic comes back, that's a legit trio of weapons for Ashton Daniels to throw the football to. I don't know how many more games they win this year. But I certainly look at that Cal game, which is now the most important game that Troy Taylor will coach this season against his alma mater, and say, yeah, okay. They could win the game. Could. It's possible. Going to be fun. Can't wait for that one later in the season. Arizona. Oh my gosh. Did you guys see what happened in Pullman? I had to do not a double take, not a triple take, not a quadruple take. I had to do a quintuple take. Checking the score on my phone. I was at an event and I looked to see that Arizona is not beating Washington State. They are not just defeating them on the scoreboard. They are manhandling the Cougars. We've introduced something here on this show, every Thursday we do, that's our range of outcomes. So far, I hadn't had a whiff. There's my first whiff. I knew going into the game, yeah, Arizona could win. Yeah, Arizona could win the game. I thought their high end of winning was by maybe 6 to 8 points. I didn't have what we just saw anywhere near my mind. If one team was going to blow out the other, I would have thought it'd be Washington State because they're at home. After a tough loss against UCLA, coming back at home, unfortunately, it was the same story for the Cougs. Cam Ward doesn't play well, and the offense just doesn't have enough, and the offensive line is outmatched. But 44-6? That was an unfortunate drubbing, and it is not great for the Cougs because they have to go to Oregon this week. And we know the Ducks are going to be motivated after losing that game to Washington. Winning at Autzen Stadium is hard. The good news is after Oregon, the Cougs should be able to get back to their winning ways. But after that exceptional start, Washington State has now lost 2 in a row, and I think they're going to lose 3 in a row this week. So not a great time for the Cougs. Still, some solid goals in front of them. They could still be a 9-3 team. It's not impossible. 8-4 might be the ceiling now after losing to Arizona. I didn't see that one coming, but the Wildcats, holy smokes. I mean, I said before the season, I think Arizona is a good football team because I think they've improved their roster on defense. I think they have good playmakers, and I think they have a good coach. Well, guess what? Arizona is a good football team. 4-3 right now. For someone who liked them to finish the year 7-5, interesting. They're sitting at 4-3. Arizona this week has a bye. Then they take on Oregon State at home. Preseason, I predicted Arizona win that football game. A couple Beaver friends of mine out there in the world sent me a text and pushed back on it. No way we're losing at Arizona. Really? Interesting. Yeah, almost like Arizona's a pretty good football team. So Arizona, a big outright winner this week. Also, sorry to Jaden DeLaura, but that's Noah Fafita's job. You can't make a change, even if DeLaura comes back healthy. I know Jed Fitch said, no, it's DeLaura if he comes back. I don't know how you do that. What more does Noah Fafita need to do? I mean, what more could he possibly need to do to be named the full-time start? He should be. He just should be. Period, point blank, end of discussion. I'm already over talking about it. Oregon State, I put them in the outright winners category this week. Why? Because they picked up a top 25 win. They did so convincingly and have reminded everyone after that loss on the road to Washington State, which was highly disappointing to begin conference play, that Oregon State is a conference contender, can make it to the game, the Pac-12 title game that is, and here's their schedule. Here's their schedule, a bye and then 2 road games. I like having that bye before you have to go on the road twice. At Arizona and at Colorado. Neither one a cakewalk, though I think we know the Buffs are not amazing, but they can score. They can score, and that can always make things interesting. Then they have Stanford, and then Washington, then they go at Oregon. How likely does 10-2 feel right now with the way Oregon State's playing? Feels pretty likely. Others are feeling good, though not great, perhaps, across the Pac-12, including Utah. What do we do with Utah? If you want to go to a Utah game, perhaps you check out Game Time, of course, because you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed. Like I am obsessed with college football, they're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets with deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You know what else I can guarantee? That Prize Picks is a blast and a half. The largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Prize Picks is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. That's it. No thousands of other bettors, no pros, no sharks. You just pick more or less on some player stat projections and you watch the winnings roll in. That is, if you know what you're doing. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's keep things going. Into the lean win department. Pac-12 prime picks got off to a rough start, but Washington, which we grabbed here on the show at under a field goal, and they win by a field goal. That's a little half-point cover. Not bad. Shout out to the Dogs for that. Oregon State minus 3.5. That was my favorite pick of the week. W. Colorado let me down. I had a Colorado in the prime picks at minus 11.5. Thought they'd win the game by 21, and they were up by 29 at the half. I was feeling great about it. Then the second half happened, and whoops. But, however, Notre Dame took care of USC. Trojans did not look good. They will certainly not be in the winners or lean win department this week. But the Pac-12 prime picks 3-2. I am now 500 on the year. Big week coming up. Only 4 games in the Pac-12 slate. Big week of picks coming up for me. Last time I had 4 games to pick from, and that's it. Went 2-2. We'll see how things go. In the lean win department with the Pac-12 prime picks, the Utes of Utah. Now, when you beat a Cal team that I expected you to beat, you're not going to be higher than a lean win, right? It's not a ranked win, right? It's a good, solid win, though. And the Utes just keep quietly racking up wins without Cam Rising. And they seem to have found something offensively. Is it Bryson Barnes? Is it Nate Johnson? I think Bryson Barnes is closer to the answer. But the Utes put up 31 points in this game. I thought Cal would hang around. I had 20-13, the final score, 31-14. The final score, 34-14, excuse me, the final score from Rice Eccles. That Utah defense is really good. I mean, really, really good. They're showing that week in and week out, and they just keep winning football games. And that's a good, solid place for them to be. They take on USC this week. You better have Cam Rising for that one. That's all I'm going to say, because USC is a little bit ticked off right about now after getting housed by Notre Dame. So, the no vibe department, Cal and Arizona State. Arizona State on a bye, and Cal, yeah, they didn't cover, but I think Fernando Mendoza, as long as he's able to come back and be healthy, looks pretty darn good. Like, Cal is just Cal. They're just kind of there. Like, you're not going to win that game. You had a chance to, maybe because Cam Rising wasn't playing, but on the road with a rocky quarterback situation, I remain adamant that with guys like Taj Davis, who had a rough day with drops, and Jeremiah Hunter and Jaden Ott and Isaiah Fonse, Cal is a quarterback away and maybe one offensive lineman from being a solid team. Didn't love the way their defense played. They were a little iffy on the ground, but I thought Cal was going to cover in this game. And they were in position to do so. They trailed by 10 points with 7 minutes to go. They had the ball inside the Utah 15-yard line. And we didn't cover 10.5. Cal missed the field goal again. Rough. All right. The lean-lose department. UCLA. Dante Moore is going to be a good quarterback. I am convinced of that. When he makes a good throw, it is mighty impressive. The game is too fast for him right now. Every defense is too fast for him right now. He is not a good quarterback right now. I believe playing him is the correct decision for Chip Kelly and UCLA. But this is a team that is good, but not great, and they are being held back by their quarterback. That much is obvious. Completion percentage, under 50%. 3 interceptions. I didn't expect him to play well in this game. It's why the Beavs were my favorite bet of the week. And you look at the box score and see he was 14 of 33, 165, a touchdown, and 3 picks. Yeah, it's hard to see how you can feel good about him right now. He'll get better, but it's going to take time. And this is just the process with young quarterbacks, and it's the season I always felt UCLA should have been prepared to be in for. It's the one that I think they are having right now. They are in all likelihood out of the Pac-12 championship game picture, although I will say this. They are at Stanford this week. They host Colorado, interesting game. They go at Arizona. They host Arizona State. They go at USC, and they host Cal. It's not a gauntlet. They've already played the toughest part of their schedule, Utah, Washington State, and Oregon State, and did well to pick up a win there. But it's doable for them to rack up wins. I just don't see them going unbeaten. It's just not a time where Dante Moore is prepared to lead them to that level. They need better quarterback play. That's what they're missing. Carson Steele is good. The defense is good. Like, the offensive line, I don't think is great. I didn't rate them very high last week here on the show, and I think that got backed up against the Beavs because he's under pressure a lot, but he also holds the ball too long. Chip Kelly on the sidelines a lot of the time was telling him, throw the ball, right? It's 4th and 10, 4th and 13. You got to throw the ball, right? Even if you throw it up for grabs, throw the ball, give us a chance. So he's in the midst of a learning curve. It's a steep one for him, which is to be expected for a true freshman. And when he makes good throws, I mean, his ball placement is exquisite. When he is on time, in rhythm, and making good decisions, his ball placement is elite. His arm is good. His accuracy is deadly. He'll be a good quarterback one day. He's just not right now. And I think that's okay. But UCLA didn't play particularly well in this game. I didn't think they would win, but it's in the lean-lose because the ramifications of it are, yeah, the Pac-12 title game is probably not in their future. Now with their second conference loss and still half the regular season left to go. So, lean-lose. Then a hard lean-lose here for Oregon. Now, the Ducks do not go in the outright loser category, at least for me, for a couple reasons. Number one, their goals are still available to them, unlike UCLA, but still they belong in this category with the Bruins for a different reason. Oregon's goals are still ahead of them, number one. Number two, I still think they're a really good team. In the Pac-12 Power Rankings coming out on tomorrow's show that I'll do with Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies, Washington and Oregon are still my number one, number two, in that order. Oregon outgained Washington in the game. Put up over 540 yards of offense, I think it was, on the road. Their defense has improved. Washington's offense is just stupidly good. But everybody else, I think, is going to learn how good Oregon's defense is, how improved they are. The reason they're not in the no vibe category, despite the game playing out almost exactly as I thought it would, I had 34-30. It was 36-33. That's not bad for me on that front. The reason that I have Oregon here is because this is a rivalry game, and they had a chance to win, and it was the exact same script as last year. And losing that game as a Duck fan, that sucked. It sucked. Straight up point blank. It sucked. The team doesn't suck, though. That's the difference. I didn't have concerns about the team. I was just frustrated as an Oregon fan with the outcome. So that's why they're in the lean-lose, not the outright loser department, which is a busy, busy place. We don't usually have in this segment this season this many teams that are in the lean-lose or outright loser department, but we do this week, and that's just the way things go. 3 outright losers. Let's start with Colorado. What was that? I mean, there's nowhere. I don't care if you're a rebuilding team, which Colorado is. That was embarrassing. You were up 29-0 at home. I don't care who you're playing. You should never lose that football game. Should not happen. Cannot happen. And bowl eligibility is now in question. Because you know what Colorado's schedule looks like? It goes a little something like this. They have a bye this week, and then they will play at UCLA. Not an easy game. Not an impossible game to win, but certainly not an easy one. That's a bad matchup for Colorado, frankly, because UCLA loves to run the football. Then they host Oregon State. That team is better than you. They host Arizona. That team is better than you. They go at Washington State. That team's better than Colorado. And then they go at Utah. That team's better than Colorado. Buffs could end the season on... They could end the season on an L6. Finding a way to win one would be, I think, is very attainable. Finding a way to win two, boy, that's going to be tough. That is going to be tough. So Colorado is not in a good place right now. The vibes are low. They did that in front of their home fans. It was a packed house at Folsom Field. Look, between Arizona and Oregon State, I could see them winning one of those games. It's not impossible. But boy, it doesn't feel nearly as likely after that performance. And bowl eligibility, not a given. Not a given. Felt like it was after the 3-0 start. Not anymore. It is definitely not, and that's what they're fighting for, which is a reasonable goal this season. Still attainable, but not an easy one after blowing that big lead to Stanford. USC and Washington State, got to talk about two teams that are really actually pretty similar. They have had the same script play out this season. What am I talking about? Well, right now I'm talking about Athletic Brewing because they have changed the non-alcoholic beer game. Michael Penix and Rome Odunze changed the game with the go-ahead touchdown with under 2 minutes to go against Oregon on Saturday, and Athletic Brewing Company has changed the non-alcoholic beer game by, wait for it, making non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. I know, what a concept. They're great tasting, award-winning, and beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beers, including IPAs, golden sours, and more. No hangovers ever. Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic beers are fit for all times. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON, get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Okay, we got to talk about Washington State and USC before we get to a mailbag question to wrap up today's show. So, Washington State and USC are outright losers this week because they got housed. You can lose those games and not feel terrible. But if you're a Washington State fan, how bad did that feel? At home? At home where Oregon State went in and was trailing by 3 scores? At home where Wisconsin came in and was trailing by 3 scores? You don't just have back-to-back losses here and appear poised for a third this week at Autzen Stadium, which is tough in and of itself. You didn't just fall out of the top 25, got absolutely manhandled by Arizona. The Wildcats threw the ball, ran the ball. The defense didn't play well. The offense didn't play well. I was not expecting that. And look, one of you a while ago, I think it was Olivia on Twitter, said I was an honorary kook, which I am honored about. Yeah, it was Olivia. So shout out to you, Olivia, for saying that. It's really nice, and I appreciate that. That was embarrassing. That was an embarrassing performance by Washington State, and it's a concerning one more than anything. It's a concerning one because now you start to look at the schedule and say, well, looks like Pac-12 championship game hopes are gone. Fact check, true they are. Can you still have a successful season? Yeah, of course. Of course you can. Washington State could find themselves inside the top 25 by the time the season comes to a close. If they were to go 8-4 in the regular season and win their bowl game, yeah, I'd vote for them to be in the top 25 if I had one. I don't. I have one at the Locked On Network, of course. But they are not worthy at this point in time of being inside the top 25, which amidst all this realignment craziness has been, I think, a strong rallying point for them of, hey, why are we getting left behind? We got a top 25 football program. Well, right now they don't, and they won't for a while. They're not going to have the opportunity. I think at 7-3 is the next time they could get into the top 25. They beat Oregon this week. Of course, they would be right back there. I don't think that's going to happen because I have concerns, as I did before the season, about Washington State's offensive line. And they just have not been able to find any sort of run game. And they're like USC in this sense. So USC's defense actually didn't play that horribly against Notre Dame. Like, go look at the numbers. They were put behind the 8 ball. Like, they were not bad. Probably one of the better games USC's defense has played this season. Certainly in a big game against a good team, it's the best game they've played this season. But the offense was terrible. Why? Because Caleb Williams was off. Caleb Williams had a performance that was eerily reminiscent to Oregon State a season ago. The difference is Sam Hartman was not pulling a Chance Nolan and throwing 4 interceptions to the Trojans defense. That is the only difference. Caleb Williams had a stinker last year. Guess what? He had a stinker on Saturday in South Bend. And Cam Ward, for the second straight week, did not play well, did not get into a rhythm, turned the football over a couple times. And the similarity between Washington State and USC is that they go almost pound for pound, stat for stat, with how their quarterback goes. If Caleb Williams, I talked about it going into the Notre Dame game. If Caleb Williams isn't being Superman, USC doesn't have anything else. Now, when he's being Superman, it's great. And when Cam Ward is amazing, it's great, right? It's the Oregon State game. But you're going to have massive peaks and valleys throughout the course of the season when you are almost completely reliant on offense and really with your whole team on one guy. Now, I trust Washington State's defense more than USC's as a general principle, but then those concerns were elevated in a massive way on the Cougs side of things when Arizona comes into Pullman, goes into Martin Stadium, runs all over the field, and puts up 44 points? I did not see that coming in any way, shape, or form. It is the first range of predictions that has been way beyond what I said could happen in terms of the final outcome. That was not a good day for Washington State. Vibes are not high, and the Cougs are just going to have to, I think, unless they can pull an upset of Oregon this week, bite the bullet for another week, and then understand that there is still a good season to be had, just not the one that appeared possible 2 weeks ago. And the same issues arose against Arizona that came up against UCLA. Can't run the football, and if Cam Ward isn't awesome, there's no way to move it. There just isn't. And Wazoo's defense played well against UCLA, did not play well against Arizona. So, not a great time for Washington State. Big concerns for USC. Like, their defense isn't great, but that was honestly, like I said, the best game they played. But they just didn't look ready. And that's what Mark Colkin of Locked On USC said, is like, they didn't look ready to play the game. And guess what? They didn't. They did not appear ready to play that football game. And Caleb Williams was just trying to play hero ball and doing too much. And I think psychologically that comes from the defense not playing well this season. As Caleb Williams thinks, I have to do all these things. And Caleb Williams is thinking, I've got to be able to make these spectacular plays because that's kind of what's been asked of him. And it turns out that that has a ceiling, and we saw it on Saturday night in South Bend. So Wazoo, USC, and Colorado, outright losers this week. USC against Utah. I hope Cam Rising plays. It makes it a lot more fun, but that's a game the Trojans definitely got to have in more ways than one. Okay, mailbag is always open, by the way. YouTube comments, or hit me up on Twitter at Smalls_55 or at LO_Pac12. This from Zach Donner. Serious question. Next year, do Colorado and Utah walk into the Big 12 as favorites? It really seems like Texas and Oklahoma are on a collision to meet again in the Big 12 championship game. Well, what he's getting at here is the Big 12 sucks. Fact check true. It is terrible. Oklahoma and Texas are good teams. Nobody else is good. TCU? TCU lost to Colorado. Remember that? This is a Colorado team that lost to Stanford just now. I watched these things play out on my television in real time. So the Big 12 is bad. The new teams are not adding anything of note. BYU, had a nice win on the road against Arkansas, but I don't think they've beaten a real, a former Big 12 team from 2022. So BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, like Houston won on a Hail Mary against West Virginia. Okay, West Virginia is a nice story, not a great team. TCU is just okay. Texas Tech has taken a step back since they lost their quarterback, and Baylor's not any good. And I mean, you just go up and down. Just go up and down the roster and realize that it's not very good. Now, I think your question comes with a caveat of what happens this offseason. Because if Colorado is going to be talked about in any way, shape, or form as, well, hey, could they be a contender next year? Well, Colorado right now is living in a world in which they could end the season 4-8. That's possible. They're going to be an underdog in just about every game they play, maybe not against Arizona. They could end the season 4-8. I don't know that they will, but 5-7 seems a lot more likely than 4-8. TCU went to the college football playoff a year after they went 5-7, but they made some upgrades in the offseason. And they brought in Sonny Dykes, and Shedeur Sanders has to come back for Colorado to be considered in that class. And then they have to make a bunch of roster upgrades. They've got to improve in the trenches. They've got to have all their skill position guys come back. They got to be able to run the football. A lot of things have to change there. Utah, on the other hand, also needs a quarterback. So I don't think they're automatically the favorites. No, they're capable. But we got to see the offseason play out before we can say, well, they're going to go in there and run it. Look, Utah is the best program in the Big 12 starting in 2024. That I agree with. If you're just talking on a program-wide level, I'm with you there. But will they have the best team in 2024? Who's playing quarterback for them? I don't know, and I need to know the answer to that question before I can make that sort of definitive statement. But appreciate the question. Keep them coming. Appreciate all you listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.